Ladies and gentlemen, guess what? It's the Conference USA Report Podcast. And now, why am I doing this with the mic and stuff? It's because I'm recording a podcast, right? And this is the mic I use. And also why it's going to be weird. I'm not going to be looking at you right here in the camera, but this is a video. I figured I'd record it, post it to YouTube, do two things, folks. Yeah, today was the day two of the Conference USA Media Days on Zoom. Brought to you by Zoom, I guess. It was also on ESPN too. They still had the interviews with what's his face? I forget his name now. But basically the guy that's been interviewing for everybody. The normal Conference USA Media Days kind of thing. They usually have like their premier broadcast partner, and that's basically ESPN Plus right now. And then everybody else, print media. Typically, it's held um, kind of like in a hotel room. I think my first year doing it a few years ago was in a hotel somewhere in like Irving or something like that. Last couple of years, it's been held in Frisco at the what is it called? The Baylor Scott and White Center. Um, cool, good times. Um, there, everybody. A lot of people complain. I think even Will Hilly just kind of mentioned it. It's not as fun. You don't get to fly out, kind of be there, be in person, get to meet people. I think for the media folks, it's definitely not as cool because you get to kind of stand with somebody and kind of it's not as formal. You're not giving this press conference, which can be a little what's the word stilted. It's you have a 20-minute time. There's a moderator. He's calling on you, and so it's like, hey, so and so, what ask your question. You're like, hey, coach, just blah blah blah. When you have like the scrum sessions kind of in the way that they do it at normally, I guess when things are open, it's you can sit at a table with them and you can kind of just talk. It doesn't have to be so rapid fire and chasing people around. Now, every year there's a popular coach. Past couple seasons that was like Lane Kiffin. There's this gigantic scrum around him. I know one year I didn't get to actually interview him because there were just so many people. Uh, you know, ESPN was there, and I forget who it was, but that guy was just kind of he was hogging up the time, But there's always a coach that's not as popular, and you can get over there, have a conversation with them, and it's a lot cooler, right? You get to just basically talk, and that's when you get the best answers, right? It's not scripted. It's not those things that they are prepared and ready to give, and they don't hit their talking points as easily. Once you let them get their talking points out, it's a lot easier to just talk about other things, right? You can lead into some other questions. You can probe a little bit. Even when you're with other media members and they're talking, they ask a nice question, you can kind of follow up with that, like, "Hey, so you said this a few times. What do you mean by that? Or can you expand on that?" And it's especially when nobody's like recording them, like with a camera all in their face like that. It's a lot easier to have a conversation and get some real insights into these people. So obviously, didn't get to do that, right? Um, it was a press conference kind of thing. If you've watched any press conference in the last year and a half or so, you know what it is. You know how it works. It's a Zoom call basically. And it was what it was. I'm not going to complain about it. So let's get into it. We'll do it the way that Conference USA did it. We'll try to keep it short. I don't want to be here for longer than an hour for lots of reasons. I'm going to have to break this video up just because nobody's going to watch an hour long video. So I'll kind of cut it up into manageable portions, basically. But for you on the podcast, you just be listening to us talk through it. So first up, um, I'm just gonna go with a rough, not really my rankings, but I think not even the media's rankings, which I think are kind of silly. I didn't get to vote on those. I was wondering about that. Like, hey, when did that ballot go out, man? Anyway, um, we'll start with Marshall. We'll go down to Old Dominion. I think it's roughly the order that everybody's kind of cool with. There may be just like a swap. I don't know. Maybe Phil Steele's like, nah, let's put Western Kentucky higher or something, whatever. We're gonna go Marshall, Florida Atlantic, Western Kentucky, Charlotte, Middle Tennessee, FIU, and then Old Dominion. And then in the West, we'll do UAB, UTSA, Louisiana Tech, Southern Miss, North Texas, Rice, and UTEP. That's roughly, order of finish for everybody, what everybody thinks it's going to be. And we'll just talk about it. I'm not going to really preview the entire season. I'll give a few thoughts on where I think these teams are. We'll get into some of that preview a little bit later as we get closer to the actual season. We learn some more from fall camp, injuries, late, additions or subtractions or what have you. We'll know more, right? Right now, it's just, it's talking season. So we'll talk about it. We talked to these coaches. They gave their impressions of things, and we'll kind of do the same. So let's start. Marshall. You got a new coach, right? Charles Huff. He's the new guy. It's a weird situation. Let me just grab my notes. I'm reaching over. Like, what is that guy doing? I'm reaching over for my notes from today's uh, press conference. What am I looking at here? Oh, sorry. I just realized that I told myself I was taking some notes on who's gonna finish where. By the way, I'll just say it right now. Rough estimate. I got Marshall like 5-7. I'm not even talking mess. I just don't know about him. So Charles Huff. He has a new offense. A lot of same guys. Just top level. You like that they're bringing back so much talent, so many guys that were part of a team that played in the conference championship game. However, was it 7-3, 4-1 in Conference USA? They had a lot of wins, but then you look at those teams and you're not super impressed, except for maybe Appalachian State, right? It was an impressive win. That was at home, 17-7, right? That's sort of when Grant Wells made a name for himself, right? You're like, look, this dude, yeah, he threw for a lot of yards. It was impressive against Eastern Kentucky, but I mean, who really is impressed by Eastern Kentucky? It was when they played Appalachian State, a ranked team at the time. And we're like, okay, maybe the squad is to be reckoned with, right? They beat Louisiana Tech, a team that had a lot of troubles. Had a lot of issues with their roster. I was going to say defections, but it's people just sat out. And then they beat FAU, another contender in the East, but also a team that had basically what Marshall's going through this year, right? It's a team that had won, had a new coach, stepping into a winning situation and trying to put his imprint upon it, but also not mess up what was good about it, right? So I'm looking at Marshall and I'm looking at FAU and I'm saying there's a lot of similarities there. Marshall did a lot of good things. They had a really good defense. So they replaced their defensive coordinator, right? Is it Charles Huff, Cramsey, I believe. I'm looking at my notes, and then Guidry as their defensive coordinator. So one thing about Charles Huff, he says all the right things, right? He kind of has this like, yeah, we're just gonna. You mentioned rat poison. Everybody's working hard, is what he says. This was a theme among the entire conference. Everybody was working hard. Everybody liked their spring. Everybody liked their summer. Everybody liked the workouts. Everybody loves the strength coach. Everybody feels like everybody's getting strong, fast, big, and they like the way the team's coming together. So not a whole lot different there. Not so much surprising in those departments. This is what everybody says, right? You know, Another thing that stood out. Now I won't repeat this for everybody, just because it stood out for everybody. Everybody said like almost the exact same thing, and I wonder. I didn't get a chance to follow up on this. If they actually had a meeting and said, "Look, I'm not going to reveal any vaccination numbers," because everybody was asked, "What are the vaccination numbers, for your team?" And everybody gave some sort of this answer as follows: We like where we are. It's improving, and what the most important thing is to educate our players, is to let them know that we have answers for them. And we're gonna point them in the right direction to experts, and then the consequences that would happen if they don't, right, to the team, to themselves, whatever. And then if they do, the consequences to the team, to whatever. But we like where it's going. But we're not gonna give out any numbers. It's a personal decision. We just want everybody to be educated. That's that's basically what they said. Right. So again, a theme. Charles Huff said, "Look, we got good players. We're not taking the rat poison, right? He's stealing the his old boss's famous line, Nick Saban's, right? He learned a lot from Alabama is to not to let expectations determine how you feel about your program. You still got to work for it. He went 7-0, but that doesn't carry over. Nobody's gonna lay down for you. You have the experiences and you learn from that, but that's not gonna carry over. You're 0-0 on the season. That's where it starts. So for my money, that's a good perspective, right? But this is talking season, and talking also don't get you doesn't get you much. I like I like that they have a returning starting quarterback. I think Grant Wells is going to take a little bit of a leap. I am concerned that he had a lot of tunnel vision against Rice and against UAB. Uh, Rice is a improving defense, and UAB is a very good defense, right? So you look at those two performances. That's just about the top of the conference in terms of ability, right? You maybe throw in like Western Kentucky in there, and they beat Western Kentucky 38-14. So who are the contenders? Who are they going to compete with? Yeah, it's pretty much the same, the usual cast of characters. I don't really think FIU has what it takes. It's going to be FAU. I think that's the if I'm looking at it, I think FAU probably wins this division. I think there's just a lot to like there. Defense is good, offense is explosive. Uh, you know, kind of getting everybody together. They're just like ready to play. I think Marshall benefited a ton from having experienced guys, um, an experienced coach. Somebody just like there was a lot of continuity leading into last season, so they were best prepared to deal with a weird 2020. FAU, I thought they did okay in their in that season, but again, adding a Willie Taggart when not everybody was ready to kind of it's hard to embrace change, right when right when everything is kind of going to hell, I guess. It's a funny way to put it. But where did I'm trying to look for where FAU finished 4-2. That's what I was gonna say. 4-2 in the conference. They were right there. They're right there, and they did lose to Marshall. Heads up. So whatever. I think I'm looking for Marshall to take a step back, but I'm probably gonna be wrong. Like I said, this is my preliminary. What's the word? Preliminary, just kind of guesstimate, we'll say. So speaking of FAU, I guess let me just finish this up. Marshall had one of the best defenses in the league for a number of years. That's a team that you could always rely on to be stout, even in those FAU years with Lane Kiffin. I think Marshall gave him the hardest games. Right? They played with him. They handled him a little bit. I wonder how much that changes. I know. I think this new guy, was it Gidry, is supposed to bring a lot of pressure and be a little bit more aggressive and just kind of take it to him. That's all well and good, but that also invites mistakes, that kind of thing. And no, we'll see. I like Huff. I like what he has to say. I just wonder if a lot of changes going in, and there were some transfers, just a lot of new stuff happening there. So we can't look at Marshall and say, well, there's going to be the same old Marshall, and they were good last year, therefore they'll be good this season. I think it's a lot of like they were good last year. Now there's some changes. They mixed it all up. We're going to run into some issues, right? I mean, Huff's a first time head guy. There's just a lot to learn, but he's in a great situation, right? So can't complain. All right.